The paper basically that Sara and I wrote, Sara is sitting right beside me, is based on the 2 years of our research into the judicial nominations and appointments process at the higher judiciary with a gender lens, because we had noticed that no woman had been elevated to the Supreme Court, so we were wondering where the issues were. And so it wasn't just a legal inquiry, but also delves into some of the historical and the social factors and other invisible barriers that may have contributed to this anomaly that we have in our legal system and in the justice sector. So we looked at pre-British era system as well, and how the judges were kind of appointed during the Mughal period, and from that point onwards we traced that history and also took it to the contemporary and trendy practices, the global trends, emerging trends developing all across the globe in present times, and how the entire process has actually evolved from a focus just on professional credentials to other factors of competence and diversity, particularly commitments to diversity, and how the world over principles of judicial appointments now do stress on the fact that there needs to be representation, fair representation when the nominations process for senior judiciary and the appointments of senior judiciary is being considered, and where there are two people of equal merit, the one bringing diversity to the bench shall be preferred. And that was often confused with fettering with the independence of the judiciary. However, generally how it has been, we found how it's been interpreted is that unfettered power is not the same thing as something which affects the independence of the judiciary. So while of course independence of judiciary is a standard and that should be achieved, but that should not mean that they should have unfettered power and arbitrary power to initiate these nominations. And there needs to be within the constitutional framework, there's Article 25 that guarantees affirmative action to make these provisions for women to ensure that there is representation. And so the courts and the JCP also have to function within that constitutional framework. So this was basically what we found, and how we can achieve that is something that Sara will highlight.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Sara, Raza, and like Ms. Nida, Usman, Chaudhary mentioned, I'm the co-author of this paper on judicial nominations and gender diversity. I'm also one of the editors of the Pakistan Journal of Diversity and Inclusion, and I want to thank all of you for your time here. Basically, when we were doing research for this paper, we put forward quite a few recommendations that we believe can be very helpful in increasing gender diversity at the bench. What we believe is the first and foremost recommendation that we would like to put forward is a constitutional amendment and reform that could basically give the public a publicly declared process and selection criteria which is clearly defined in terms of scholarship and competence, and could tell what exactly a potential candidate has to achieve or be eligible for in order to become part of the bench. And secondly, we believe that there should be like a document of sort which could be named as the Pakistan Principles of Judicial Nominations and Appointments that could basically act as a clear action plan or roadmap for increasing transparency, credibility, and consensus over judicial nominations and appointment processes. Thirdly, we believe that a standing committee on gender diversity can be established in accordance with how the Judicial Commission of Pakistan works to monitor, evaluate, and initiate initiatives that could basically be in line with those of what the practices are in the UK and in the US to increase gender diversity in judicial nominations and appointments. Fourthly, we believe that inviting female lawyers, sending applications and letters to female lawyers to fill in vacancies in the superior judiciary can be a good way to bring more women forward in order to encourage them to apply for judicial vacancies and places. This was also one of the things that was done in Ontario, and we believe that taking inspiration from things that were done in other countries can be very helpful at this stage. Fifthly, consultative sessions with the JCP and judicial academies can also be helpful in increasing gender diversity, because the younger pool of candidates can take inspiration from the people who are already working there to know how to make their applications stronger when they're applying for judicial positions. And so we believe that outreach events and career development workshops will be very helpful for the younger lot that is applying. Sixthly, we believe that gap analysis studies and legislative and administrative reforms in terms of very clear sexual harassment policies, provision of daycare centers, maternity leaves, and clear and developed infrastructure for providing daycare centers and providing designated parking spaces and toilets can be one of the ways of encouraging women to become part of the legal profession and be more included in the practice. Lastly, we believe that affirmative action as in reserved seats is extremely important, because marginalized communities need to have some sort of quota on the bench. They need to be given that a 33% quota, like we have mentioned in our paper, in order to have greater gender diversity on the bench and have more women and more marginalized communities take up the position of judges and judicial officers. So this is pretty much what we have recommended in our paper. But why we are doing this and why we believe it's so important to talk about increased gender diversity in judicial nominations is because, just in conclusion, is because we want to call for an objective and transparent criteria for nominations. We want to promote diversity and equality of opportunity in the judiciary. We want to ensure a more intersectional representation at the bench. And of course, we want to increase diversity and inclusion with respect to women's representation in the legal profession as a desirable objective of the rule of law. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Sara.